Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me for coffee this morning. My guest today is Katie McBratney, and I'm obsessed, which you're going to find out why. But her quick bio is she is former CMO of Seed and Spark, which you should look up because it's super rad. And she is co-founder and chief brand officer, which I almost said CBO, and I was like, no one knows what that means. For OwnTrail, and that's really what we're going to get into. She is also an advisor for Built by Girls, which also makes her more awesome to me. So, Katie, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Cheers for coffee.
Cheers for coffee. And we discussed before this in our artisan-made local potters mugs.
Yes. Support
another full disclosure, Katie and I know each other from Chairman Mom. And maybe one of these days I'll talk Sarah into having coffee and we'll talk all things Chairman Mom as well, because I think that would be amazing. So that was the high note and a bit of a ramble, but I'm so excited. What do you do? Like, what would you say you do?
Ooh, that's such a big question. So I would say I build non-bullshit brands that typically are with underestimated founders or companies that make an impact. So essentially I build non-bullshit brands for companies with heart. And that takes lots of different forms. And also, so that's like my day job and also just kind of my life's work really as a storyteller and person obsessed with putting more good into the world than was there before.
Oh, so good. I get goosebumps every time. I mean, I think the first time we talked, you were one of those, and I want to go in on that non-bullshit part. Because even as a friend, you go all in, focus, interpersonal communication, not small talk around. It's very much like, hi, I'm Katie. What do you do? How do you feel about this big thing?
I joked that I have 0% chill. I've been working on it in a way, and not to take away from that superpower, which thank you for appreciating, but for not always feeling like I have to be in extreme modes. But yeah, I'm too interested and passionate and curious, and I just get bored by small talk, to be honest. Like, we can talk about the weather if it's actually interesting. Otherwise, like, I want to know what makes people tick and what gets them excited. Like, I don't want to like just sit there and have a conversation while we both know that we're having 3 other like more interesting conversations with other people in our head. Like, life is too short. People are way too interesting. And I just want to cut to the chase. Like, let's just get over it
so much.
Get to the point.
So you're building these companies, and granted, because you have zero chill, but like how to connect those dots a little bit for me. And that is a great segue a bit for OwnTrail as well. So
it is.
I didn't even mean to do that, but here we go. Like, how'd you get there?
Yeah, and it's so interesting how it just happens. This happens so often, which to me kind of like, in a way, points out that I'm in the place I need to be right now. But I haven't had a nonlinear path through life or through my career. I've worked in nonprofits. My first job out of college after I graduated with a degree in journalism and mass communications was at a zoo. One of the best zoos in the country. So any other fellow parents who is planning a post-COVID trip, the Omaha Zoo, one of the absolute best in the world, cannot recommend enough. But I really and so I've worked at a zoo. I worked at a digital agency for 6 years. Eventually, when I left, I was the GM and the VP of the West Coast office. And then I've been essentially in startups for the past 7 years. What is time? We're in 2020. What is time?
Construct.
And really what it's been as I look back, the whole hindsight 2020 is I've just followed a certain thread around storytelling and following my curiosity and being open to knowing that I don't know yet. And then at the flip side, growing up, my parents very much instilled in me a sense of like financial stability. So like, I think those 2 things balance each other out in terms of the risk, right? I've got the side of me that's like, sure, I'll move across the country. I've never been there before. That sounds great. Let's do it. And the part of me that's like, because I have a job and I know I won't like be out on the streets immediately. So that's really what's fueled how I got to where I am at OwnTrail, and just being open to the possibilities. So when my now co-founder Rebecca came to me and she had written a book and had this idea and was thinking, this idea that there's no right path through life. And through lots of coffee chats that we've had with women uncertain about their paths through life, this theme of like, it's okay, you're going to be fine. There's no one way. Here's how I did it. The idea to really unlock that potential at scale and to build something where women can own our stories and fully, right? The combination of our personal and professional lives, and use that power to not just help ourselves, but to lift up other women. I just saw in my mind, I'm a visual person. I saw literal like ripple effects of that going out into every industry, into so many personal lives and professional lives, and just self-confidence, and really changing the world. And I just couldn't say no to it. So I just jumped on board, and here we are launching a company in a pandemic.
Which is brilliant. So we're going to unpack that in two ways. Yeah. First, tell us exactly what, because we've been a little, abstract in it. What is OwnTrail?
Yeah. So OwnTrail is a platform where women own their stories and support other women by sharing their life path as a series of interconnected milestones. And it's a visualization where you get to actually see your path, but you choose your milestones. You choose what's meaningful to you, and you put as much detail or as little detail as you want. So they're normalized a lot across main categories that we tend to have in common as women and just as humans, like education, relationships, activities, things like that. But you choose what's important. So rather than telling your story and sharing your journey and a pre-packaged format like a CV or a resume or a LinkedIn profile, which is like career top hits, or your Instagram or Facebook, which might be like your branding or your business or just your personal life.
Yeah.
It's really you saying, what is my story fully in my own words? And on the platform right now, you can share your story. You can explore the stories of women from actually across the world, not just across the US. We have trails for women in like 48 different countries. So and engage with them by having conversations. And then we just actually this week launched our first cohort program called Trail Guides, where women are coming together in small groups to move through a process of reflection, imagination, aspiration, and action.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I want to say why. The other thing I wanted to say after you explained what it was I was just having coffee this week with another woman, and we were talking about white men in positions of power. And we were really talking about how a woman describes her journey. So I was reflecting on a talk I did for a Women in SaaS event. And I remember writing this whole talk and really going through that hero's journey, right? Which is very male centric. So it's we start, we fall, and we're here, celebrate. And a big part of the talk that I gave was, I'm in the shit still. I'm coming out of it, but like I was in the shit. And how come I don't ever see anyone talk about the shit? Like I want to talk about the mud too, because that's how we know that we're not alone. And that's how we can lift each other up to get out of the mud. But instead, we just have this linear, male's journey thing. And this is why I love OwnTrail so much, and why, I wanted to have this talk with you, because I want women, one, I want them to sign up and do their trails, but two, I want them to know that it's not this, like it is this. And we can talk about being in the mud and then celebrate getting out of it together.
Yes, there's such power in two things. When we launched our theory was that women would want to share their trails out of altruism, like, oh, I'm going to share this so it'll help other women. And that's true. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about that in a sec, but it's also this power of like actually being able to say and see your journey in your terms, and to reject that patriarchal narrative of, oh, I need to hit these hot points. Oh, where's my like epic brag? Where's my like, this wasn't really a failure, but you asked me about my weaknesses, like that horrible interview question. And that actually, even personally for me, and I blogged about it a little bit, as the co-founder, like that hit me. Like I did my trail first and I was like, I'm not happy with it. Like
Yeah.
it didn't feel fully like me because I treated it like I've been conditioned to that same narrative of play the hits, mention a few little stumbles. But then I went back and I added, the fact that I've been living with depression and anxiety for 25 years, the fact that I've had miscarriage, the fact that I've had burnout, the fact that, I've had bad breakups, and these things that I felt alone in at the time and also have made me who I am. And I
Yeah.
know that there's some other woman in that shit right now.
Yep.
And also, like, people will see a title. They'll see like a title on LinkedIn or something like this. And I do the same thing where I'm like, oh my God, she's so cool. Like, I want to be her when I grow up.
Yeah.
And and like we don't know what's that whole story is.
Right.
And none of them are linear. And it's not just careers. It's all of our paths, right? And they're like this. Some of them, like mine has gone like this a few times. Like it's wild ride.
Yeah.
And so, like, honestly, I tell people that, like, I'm so honored that my job is literally to create space for women to tell their stories and to see them do it in such like vulnerable, authentic ways. Like women talking about infertility issues, mistreatment at work, negotiating for promotions and getting that money, abortion, like these
Yeah.
topics that we've been conditioned to like keep inside or that we need to spill on somebody else's time and to feel that power shift and the fact
Yeah.
that it happened instantly, like we've been waiting for a place. We're not afraid to talk about these things. We just need to know where we can.
Right.
Like let's talk about the mud. Let's get muddy. Let's get muddy, Jillian. Let's do
Oh,
it.
can we just have a t-shirt that says that?
Yeah.
Let's get muddy.
Let's get muddy.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay. So love everything. I mean, I'm a big fan of yours and what you guys are building. What have been some of those struggles? And again, you launched a company in a pandemic, but also a time where women are very much reclaiming power, which is amazing. So what have you found has been some of that struggle?
Yeah. To your last point, it's been an incredibly validating time for our idea and for creating this community. That has not been the struggle, which is so joyous and such a triumphant feeling. The challenges and the struggles have really been because of the systems that exist that exclude women. And I say this as like a white, straight, able-bodied woman. Like I am like here on the privilege spectrum,
Right.
and the struggles are still very real. So I know that the struggles for BIPOC, women founders are like,
Yeah.
infinitely more massive. So even with the considerable privilege that my co-founder and I bring to the table as female founders, there's challenges to funding, and really outside of funding, but really just in the broad business world, it's this idea that men get judged and get given things based on potential, and women need to prove, and not just prove it once, not just have a few data points, but we need to have proven a lot more. Whereas men will get, a check written for $30 million without a product.
Mm-hmm.
And so like that is very much a real struggle. And then I think more abstractly, a struggle is that we want to do so much and we know that we can do so much. So the focus is always for me, because I am a doer of all of the things. I live very much in the intersection. And this is not just at work, but this is just my life. I'm always riding the line between strategy and execution. I can't just do one. And so with that, I have to be super disciplined with myself and really institute focus. And be able to say like, okay, what's the right next thing to do, right?
Yep.
And keep the good ideas and not abandon them, but also know that if I try to do all of the things okay, nothing will be done great.
Right.
And I need, and OwnTrail and women need these things to be done really fucking great.
Yep.
So that they can go do really fucking great things.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. So where do you find, so you're going through you're walking the fine line of the execution, and, you're moving in the right direction, and yes, funding and all of those, but where has been where have you found some of that joy? Like, has there been something that really resonated with you that you saw on a trail? Or is there something that you're like, the election, I don't know. Is there like, I don't want to feed it. So is there anything that
Yeah.
you find
I
that's
mean, there have been so many, like, honestly, I can say, we're early enough. We've got like more than 500 published trails, and like they're meaty, right? There's like one with like 50 milestones. So like they're not necessarily lightweight, but I've read every single one. And there's so many moments that I'm like, oh, I love you. Oh my God, that's so amazing. So like those I can't even count.
I would never get work done. I would just read women's trails.
Oh, we definitely. So we are a team, a full-time team of 3 women. And so like we'll Slack each other and be like, oh, did you see this trail? I want to be her friend, or wow. That's so incredible that she shared that. So that is a whole bucket of joy. Um, but I would say that as somebody who's a first-time founder, I've been oftentimes the right hand, like on the right hand side, right? But this is my first time in the founder seat. And I do have a 2-year-old who, gender being non-binary, she has not chimed in on the anything yet, but assigned female at birth. The joy of me being able to say, regardless of how successful OwnTrail will become on the massive scale of, unicorn or just a great successful business, the joy of me being able to show her and not just be like, mom wanted to do that,
Yep.
but to be like, yeah, that's what I did. Like from the time you were born, is I was building women-led, feminist, intersectional, unapologetically social-minded companies.
Yeah.
And that's how I spent my days. And the ability that I cannot just say that to her, but show it,
Yeah.
is so jubilant. And the fact that I can also, I've architected, after a lot of trial and error, myself a life where I can have more clear boundaries, and I can be like, no, I need to be with my family, and I can just be with her.
Yep.
When I need to just be with her, rather than, 10 years ago where I would be present, but my mind would 100% be on work. That hindsight, like, I don't even remember what it was.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It didn't matter. It was just to make some people some money.
Yeah.
And that brings me a lot of joy. Especially because, we're in lockdown still, and it's the beginning of a Seattle winter. So,
I mean, I resonate with that because we're about to do, an Indiana winter, and that is intense. That is very intense. Okay, so what can the community, and granted, a lot of people that watch this are from Indiana, and you guys all better do a trail. I'm gonna link it, and I want you to post them. But you are really changing on a global scale, right? How women view where they can go, and what that, and not just where they can go, but what that looks like. And they're finding solidarity. So what do you want the community, how can those communities, this community, my community, how can we show up for you?
I would say, yes, 100% add your trails. And I would also say there's an incredible power in inviting a woman that you know to add hers. I'm a native Midwesterner. And so that idea of being like, oh, thank you. I mean, I'm really not that special, I know is deeply ingrained.
Very real.
And when we extend that invitation to a woman who we know, right? You don't have to have a C-level name or like, some weird pedigree of like Wharton Business School. That's not weird. I'm sorry for anybody from Wharton. I didn't mean to offend you. But you don't have to have like a certain, success looks a lot of different ways.
Right.
So like I would invite you not just to share your trails, which I would love, but to invite a woman who you know and truly think is a trailblazer in her own right. Because a lot of us undersell ourselves. And sometimes it's just that like little nudge of like, no, you are a badass. You are incredible. Like you have done things. Go through this exercise because the world needs your power. The world needs your strength. The world needs your story. I feel like sometimes it's just that little nudge that we need to not just share it with the world, but own it ourselves. And that can carry with you. That idea of reframing how you view yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't just a one-time exercise. And that's what I'd really love is for more women to go through the exercise of doing it and then take it with you. Like it's just the beginning. So invite a friend.
Invite a friend. I love that. Oh, it's so good. That's so good because it's true. I mean, I surround myself with women that I think are, holy cow. I mean, are just, they give me goosebumps for what they do. And there's not a C level and there's not, this big high marker, but man, they do amazing things. And I truly think that most women don't know the influence they have.
Yes.
I don't mean influence to like, start an MLM. I mean like, influence on, their community. And I think that's so beautiful. We're going to do all of that. I'm going to share my trail.
And I will spin that back on you, Jill. You don't know the influence that you have. Yep, putting you on the spot on your own interview. You don't know the influence that you have sometimes. And
I can't.
Yeah, I know. Receive it because it's true. Look at the community you've brought together. And I think that that's the thing. It's hard. It's uncomfortable I'm still working on accepting compliments. Yeah. So like, let's shout out our women because like also not going to lie, when I see your interviews, I'm just like, and I need to text her to ask me to ask me to that person.
I will say this might turn into a Katie and Jill love show, but we'll get back to it in a second. There is nothing better. And I'm going to put it to you, but I say to every woman, find yourself women that will just send you, a Katie pep talk through a chat or through a text message brightens my week. I feel like you have like little radar. Again, it's going to turn into a love show, but I think all women should find people in their corner that 100% have their back. And that is powerful. And whether you or I don't like compliments, as we tell people to give compliments, there is nothing more important than women lifting women and not for the sake of getting something. I think it doesn't have to be transactional to be supportive. And, that is something that I've gotten from my group and from you. And I just want every woman find those people. And if you know that you don't have them, find them. And if you know the people that you have aren't them, change your people. Because this is how we move it up. So with that little soapbox, with that said, how, Katie McBratney, are you leaving your trace in this world? How at the end of the day is it going to be like, Katie was here, and this is where it is?
I think I touched on it a little bit with OwnTrail and how that will change the world.
Yeah,
and also with my kiddo, but to hit that at like a maybe like the in between, right? So yes, broad scale will be like, yes, OwnTrail is helping women change the world, and I was a part of that. Yes, I'm hoping to model great things for my kiddo, but I really my trace that I want to leave while I'm on this planet and when I'm gone is that the people that interacted me had a little bit more joy and a little bit more love in every interaction with me. Like that's honestly the trace that I'd like to leave, and I'm trying to.
Oh, it's good. I think that is a perfect way to end. I love you so much. Thank you for having coffee with me. Thank you for sharing this journey. We're going to get everything up on the web. We're going to share all the things so people know where to find you and where to support that project. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.